Welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. I got my buddy Alex Lopez in the house. Alex, what's up?
What's going on, man? Great to be here. Great to be here.
Very good to have you here. We've had time out on the range together. We've had time on like some travel trips to like range trips together, actually.
Yeah.
So we shared a lot of time in the car and even in like same Airbnbs and stuff. So I've gotten to know you a little bit. But I actually know you. I knew you from before a couple of things that we're going to talk about because you used to work at one of the local gun shops here that I've done business at and know quite a few of the people over there and whatnot. And so you bring a different perspective to some things that I want to talk to you about today. But before we get into that, let's talk about you.
Awesome. So I'm Alex, as said before. Got a clothing company over here on the West Coast, just kind of revolving around the shooting community. We go by Arm the Homies, ATH, if you see us other places as well. But yeah, me and my partner, we're up here in NorCal and he's down there in SoCal. He's got a gun shop he's working with over there, Portside Munitions. They're a great group of guys down there. So that's just what we've been doing and kind of just helping spread the love, spread the community vibe that it's not such a crazy kind of hobby. There's room for everybody, no matter what walk of life you are. So just try to spread community love kind of thing. Yeah.
I love you. I love Arm the Homies. I mean, people see me, I'm wearing the hat now. They see me wearing it all the time. I actually get lots of questions about it. Like when I'm out there, like, well, what is that hat? Because they like the design. Like, oh, it's cool. It's got like the bones kind of, a font to it.
Little baseball stacked font kind of thing to it. So
it definitely draws questions. Like I'd be standing in line at the grocery store, I'd be lying. Frequently I get the question. I have some t-shirts too, and they ask me about it. And that's basically the message I give them, that it's a like a lifestyle brand.
Yeah.
And it's really about spreading the good word and the love around, people that hang out and do things, in the world of firearms, but it's also just about hanging out with people and not feeling weird.
Hanging out with the bros and just being able to have a good time.
So that's kind of our connection.
Exactly.
The shop was very instrumental for me when I started to kind of up my game in the firearms sort of realm, purchasing more firearms, learning a little bit more about things. I would come down and see you guys super helpful. Your partner being super helpful too at that particular time. So again, that's kind of where the relationship started, and then kind of blossomed. Been out on the range a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Like you've got to see me mess up and make all my mistakes and evolve a little bit.
I got to see the pliers come out with the double feeds. Got to see it all.
Yeah, we've had quite a few experiences, but the experience that I really wanted to talk to you about today was your experience working in the firearms business, particularly here in California.
Yeah,
and we're coming into this conversation. And the reason I wanted to have this conversation, like the current events, the day we're recording this, and this thing will come out shortly thereafter, but the day we're recording this, there's just been yesterday, and they still haven't caught the guy with this shooter that
I read
went
about
on a
that
rampage in Maine. I mean, hopefully they get the guy before we're done and we hit the stop button today. But anytime these things happen, obviously emotions get stirred, and there's a lot of things going across the airwaves, and with that comes, for me, a huge realization of how misinformed people are about firearms in general.
Or just the blatantly lies or crazy scenarios that people are.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating. It's also, at the same time, that's what comes with mixed emotion, because my friends, and the people that I talk to and that I'm close with, including you, I don't think maybe folks from the outside that are misunderstood don't understand that for me, this impacts me like emotionally.
It's
as much as anybody else. Anybody else. I'm very frustrated by this, but I'm saddened by this because in every one of these instances, no matter how you slice it, they almost all at the end seem like, man, this didn't need to happen. Not just because there was a firearm involved, but almost every time it's like, this could have been prevented. We should have seen this coming.
Yeah, it definitely sucks, and it's a different take that just fuels the fire more of firearms need to be banned, firearms need to be this or that, or what laws may need to be passed. But at the same time, it's not good for anybody, and a lot of people really need to realize that you're always going to be your first kind of responder. So with these incidences being played against kind of firearms are all bad. Yes, we agree with instances like this, but having someone be there with a CCW, a license holder who's actually been to the range and stuff like that and really, really works on his craft so he can stop stuff like that might be a lot helpful with more stuff going on like that.
Yeah, I think you're not going to get any argument on that conversation from me. But I think that's the challenge is like, but what if? Let's just like, if you're going to
always, you can look at anything.
If you're going to have this conversation about like guns need to be banned, can you not also have this conversation about, or whatever, legislation, banned, not banned? I don't even want to go there.
Yeah, rather not.
But can you not also have this conversation like, but what if? Like, if all guns were banned, could that have stopped this? You can't say can't say it would or wouldn't have.
Can't say that same crazy mind wouldn't have a hatchet or axe or whatever case may be. You know,
we see that stuff all the time.
All the time, it still happens.
So again, that other conversation just being like, but what if there could have been an armed and trained citizen or otherwise that could have maybe stopped or prevented at least some of this,
or at least scared him away, or just anything that amount of loss of life didn't need to happen, or injury as well.
Generally, these things, as soon as the offender is met with any type of force, they generally give up, or it's stopped immediately, right? And so again, that's a longer conversation, and that's not why I brought you in today. It just happened to be, this has just happened. And part of, again, I think the relevancy is it sparks these conversations. They frustrate me because, again, it brings up all this, like you're saying things that are untrue. There are false narratives that exist here. They're unfounded. There's a lot of emotion tied to it. And then, then the emotions turn into, well, you need to take your emotion to the polls to vote these certain things in. And it's only going to be, if it hasn't already happened, you're going to have the politicians will be at the pulpit by the end of the day today with their new...
Literally was going to say the same thing. They're going to have some immediate action plan to roll out that really isn't looking at the big picture.
But at the same time, fulfills or satisfies somebody's emotion that we're doing something.
Or the person that read on the news, oh my God, that person had an assault rifle. Assault rifles are not banned. Oh, I feel better.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of that too is just a quick bandage for some people too. So.
Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating. It ends up being a circular conversation. I don't want this to be one of those. And more, again, in my reaching out to you was, I've had a lot of conversations lately with a lot of folks that are, I would say, misinformed, and they're curious.
Curious I think is right on the nail right there.
I think they want to understand it, but they're very afraid of it. And I understand this, and I understand the fear component and how that drives certain conversations and behaviors. But for me, I think it's the way you approach the fear. The fear is more like, I don't understand this, and so I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Versus, I feel a little uncomfortable about this because I don't understand it. My response to this would be, well, let me go understand it.
Yeah.
And the problem is, particularly in this particular conversation on this topic, is that where they get their information from tends to be very confusing, ambiguous at times, misleading a lot of times, and
convoluted as well too. Just a lot of info that's like and
a lot of it has to do with the source, like where's it coming from? But is it coming from? I've used this before. Like, is it coming from the crazy uncle? Is it coming from the the very, very staunchly out front conservative side of things? Is it coming from the very much left, call it progressive or liberal type of or side or viewpoint? Is it somewhere in the middle? Where did this person get their information? How much experience do they have? All those things. And I think that is the major problem. And so my goal would be to just like, hey, if there's folks out there that are a little bit more, that need more information, let's try and talk to them, because nobody is talking to those people like on a public platform that I feel confident. So as an example, going back to having these conversations, I recently had my oldest daughter on the show, and we were kind of recounting our experience at a recent firearms event. And it was as many conversations I've had with her, as many experiences as I've had with her, that whole experience over that couple of days, and then sitting down to kind of recap it together, turned on a lot of light bulbs for me about how she was getting their information, or at least what she was taking in, and that it was very one-sided. It was from me.
Yeah.
And she trusts me, right? But she got to spend a lot of time around a lot of other people that clearly aren't me, and all have their own take and their own opinion. And these were very well-founded takes and opinions, and very like non-emotional, very much based on experience, fact, and also I think that curiosity. And she was able to listen to that and take that all in. And it really changed her mindset about how she comes to the table now to ask more questions, or maybe even stop somebody. She's like,
and be able to correct somebody.
Or just say, hey, I don't know everything, but I do know that what I know about this is that you could be a little bit off base here. And I understand because I was very confused. So she can come at it from like an experiential perspective. So that was one part of it. And the other part of it is that where she is in her age. She's only 21 years old, right? And so for me, I'm an old, I'm probably twice or more your age, right?
Yeah.
So I understand that this message coming from me with the gray hair and being twice your age
might not have as much weight as someone, say maybe her age or a little bit older or something like that, maybe. Yeah. Or an influencer that she watches or knows or something like that too. So
you're spot on.
Yeah. No, I get it as well too. I mean, a lot of people, even current customers or a lot of past customers I talk to or friends that I talk to now, I know something is leading in the industry and I'll be like, yeah, you should take a look at this. I'm like, no, this guy runs this. That's the way. That's the law. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But that's how some people are. They're not always open-minded because they think they know it all. So having those people getting more in-depth and kind of being off base and being able to be put on base is very big.
I think, so that's a big question that I had. And one of the reasons I want to have you in here, again, based on your experience and kind of where you are in the culture.
Yeah.
And in life, where are folks, I hate this, but I'm going to say it anyway, like where are folks your age? Where is the younger generation or those generations getting their information from? How are they being influenced? And I understand social media, and I understand how that works. I'm not that old.
No,
right?
No.
But like I get that part. But like who and where? Like what's the most influential? What are the most influential? Like I guess I don't want to say mediums. I just want to say like pathways for the younger crowd to get their info. Like, where are they learning about guns, man?
It's definitely weird because I definitely think in the last couple of years guns have been more of a broader statement. You see them a lot more. I mean, maybe just because I'm in the industry, I see them a lot more online and a lot more new people trying to do what they like or train or just get good or just somewhat be part of the community. So it's hard to say. I'd say YouTube is a big place as well too, is because you got a lot of cool guys doing gun reviews and stuff like that. They really go over really intricate parts and how they walk through the whole thing. Or you got some guys who just like, hey, got this super thing, looks cool, let's shoot it. Or we have some personalities just like that is kind of a lot of what I find out, or a lot of what my buddies were like, hey, did you see this or do that? They spend time on YouTube. But a lot of that is not what we're talking about today, as in, how do I go get those cool things, though? It's more of about just like, yeah, I've seen this or that. But yeah, I want to see YouTube, social media, TikTok. Those second clips of seeing someone shoot a full auto real quick will get you probably juiced up and want to see where that came from. So I'd say a lot of YouTube and TikTok are a lot of people that get influence from there.
So what about you, though? Like when you were kind of coming up, like where were your influences coming from?
So I was kind of spoiled. So like you said, I worked at that gun shop for quite some time. So I got to really know what was the good and what was the bad. But for me, really growing up would be probably video games outside of that.
Okay. I understand the video games is a thing.
Like,
I've never been into them, but I understand it's a thing.
Yeah. I've been playing video games as long as I can remember. Okay. So that definitely always had kind of a, little thing here, influence there. It's like, oh, if I could actually do this one day, I would probably want to shoot this one because I like how it looks, or I did really good with it and on the game or something like that.
So interesting to me.
Yeah, I've made purchases just off of that. So
that's so interesting to me. Yeah. I mean, this is not new news to me. I still find it fascinating every time I hear that this connection is made through this digital gaming experience and it is very realistic in it, in terms of, what they're doing with the
games,
CGI and all that stuff.
The games now are more realistic than ever with their attachments. It seems like you can move your sights forward and different placements.
Oh, I had no idea about that.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's some Call of Duty's last game. They did a bunch of stuff like that where you can actually move the positioning and stuff of your gun to have certain. Like if you flinch more or you have more recoil, like depending on attachments that you use and stuff.
I had no idea.
Yeah, they went to a little bit more in depth than that. They kind of took it from this other game. I think it's called Escape from Tarkov or something like that. I'm not too good on PC, so I'm not too sure what all that's about. But I'd compare that to a lot of maybe people a generation older than me, comparing it to a lot of people what they use in the military. So you have a lot of these guys, if they do want to build something, it's like something like HK416, or they have some type of LMT, 6 hour, stuff like that. People you can I see that are a little bit older than me, or that kind of been established in the gun world. That's where they kind of get their influence from.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. That is I think it was actually a great compare contrast. What about cinema? I mean, because I talked to a lot of I talked to a lot of guys. The whole John Wick thing.
That is a huge one. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just said it. I mean, I maybe preloaded that, but John Wick, what else? Like, because when I was growing up, like, it was like, going back to the older guy stuff, like, it was, this is way dating me, and I was very young when this came out. In fact, I wasn't allowed to watch this because of the content or the subject matter, and it was rated R or whatever, but the old Sly Stallone movie, First Blood, which was the original of the Rambo series.
I remember watching my first Rambo movie, and I was like, wow.
Right. So that's kind of like you saw that stuff. Mm-hmm. I was, my parents' generation was of the Vietnam War, so there was a lot of history there for folks in the family, and I was a little bit of a history buff as growing up, so I
which helps as well too.
But I got all my stuff from books and reading about these different conflicts and what they were using, and that wasn't just firearms; it was like the equipment and even like the ships, the naval ships and things like that. It was very interesting to me. So that's where I was being influenced. But going back to cinema, like, I don't know, it starts with like Sly Stallone, then it gets into Arnold with the Commando movies and Predator and, Predator. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you guys saw that, saw that stuff as well. But what's like it wasn't flashy like you see in today's movies. It was like, it was entertaining. And it was certainly like overdone.
I'm definitely trying to think. Immediately what comes to mind was my favorite action movies, and you see crazy guns all the time, is the Expendables series. I don't know if you've seen that.
Never saw it.
Wow. I think they have 4 movies now, but it has Stallone, every major action star you can think of.
I remember the cast, but I never saw it because of that.
They have some crazy guns on there. I remember one of the scenes, one of the movies, he has an AA-12 shotgun, and he's just in a hallway, just
mowing,
just going crazy. Yeah. I'm just like, wow. Like,
so again, that's interesting with the influence.
So definitely cinema. Definitely cinema. I mean, even double backing to what you're saying as influence as well too. I guess you can say my kind of generation do base their stuff off like books and old guns and stuff like that too. We come across a bunch of retro builds of people wanting old style guns, looking old, having old parts. I've had several friends buy old stuff that they're never going to use just because it's clone correct.
That's interesting. Like I see that it reminds me of cars. Like
some people buy them, let them sit forever, and that's their collectible.
Yeah.
Same thing with firearms. I mean, same thing with this community. There's so many avenues in this community that people don't really know about. Like just like every other hobby, like you said with the cars, some people buy cars and they drive them constantly. They drive every single one. You can compare that to someone having a bunch of guns and using like every single one. Or you have this other guy over here who buys a bunch and keeps them all, but doesn't really know how to drive.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that, or you guys that just like, I just like how that looks. I don't want to ever shoot it, but it sits there. And it's cool.
I've had these conversations before, but never on the show. And I think that's interesting because like we have, people will find out, how many guns somebody may have in their safe. And they're like, that is fucking crazy. Why do you need... I don't know, 30 guns.
Ask the watch guy how many watches he has.
That's my point. I'm like, why do you have 18 Louis Vuitton purses in your closet and 16 pairs of Prada shoes? And why? Because I like to. Well, that's the same. It's the same thing. Yeah,
same thing.
It's an easy compare and contrast there, but it just sounds weird. Because of the utility of the firearm or firearms versus the utility of a Prada purse or a Prada pair of shoes or whatever.
Yeah, everyone's going to be like, well, those are completely different. But at the same time, a hobby is a hobby. And you're going to do those same influences and those same tendencies and all those hobbies that you do, as if it's not stocking up on a bunch of stuff or actively leveling up. So
yeah, so let's talk about that, because then it comes in like, okay, so you have these hobbyists, or you have folks that are like recreationalists, or people that are really serious about whether it's just shooting, just getting out, being part of the culture, collecting, all of those kind of things. But then you have the person that finally realizes at some point, I need to take my curiosity to the next level. Or, you have this thing that's just happened, like we just mentioned in Maine, and you have a citizen there that's like, I've never considered this before.
Yeah.
But this guy's out on the loose, and I have my family to worry about now. And what would I do? So they're recognizing or acknowledging the problem in a different kind of way. I've been anti-gun, or I don't see the need for quote unquote assault rifles, right? I don't see that, but I do see the utility in having a firearm to protect myself as an equalizer. And I think I should probably look into this. And that's where I want to go, because I think a lot of people have that question. I know they do, because I have these conversations with them. And for whatever reason, they feel comfortable maybe having them with me. And so what ends up turning into is a very long discussion, which often needs to start with me going, why don't you tell me what your understanding of these things are? Like firearms in general, firearm safety, your experience. Do you understand the process of even going through have you thought through the next step? Okay, having a gun is fine. That is a step. But what are you going to do about training? What are you going to do about storage? What are you going to do about informing or educating the other people in the household that are going to be around this thing or may need to utilize it if you can't or won't? Those kind of things. And that conversation or that thought process is not usually well developed.
Usually not even in step 1 or step 2 in their thought process, which is something that needs to be number 1 at all times. I mean, any gun can go bang, but you knowing how to use it and how to keep you and your family safe and everyone on the same page is a completely different story.
Yeah, I get so lost because the conversation is, I think starts and stops with, I got to get the item. I have to get the product.
Yeah, you got to get it. And once you get it, you're good. That's what kind of a lot of people, I mean, even during this pandemic that we just had in the last couple of years, a lot of people were just buying stuff just to make themselves feel safe, but not really take that extra step of, if I did actually need to use this, what am I going to do about it? And am I going to feel confident about it? So yeah, that's kind of where a lot of people don't really have all of the steps figured out. But I mean, it's definitely somewhere that everyone needs to think about for sure.
Yeah, and so I think that was the impetus of this conversation, is maybe putting together, something where, like, if you're listening to this and you're like, dude, I know all about how to buy guns and how to shoot them and how to stay safe and everything. Cool, man. Well, maybe this is a conversation that you've been trying to have with somebody and you're not getting through, or you're just finding it really difficult, right? It's that ant that just is no.
I'm sure everyone listening right now has that one friend that's like, you doing that again? Or you spent that much money on that, or you're going to go train again.
So maybe there's something in this conversation that can resonate with them in a different way, or resonates with you to have that conversation with somebody else in the world a little bit different way, or maybe listen and hear them, what they're giving back to you in a little bit different way, so that this conversation is more productive and we start to take some of the stigma off the table, but also, more importantly, inform and educate people on what that process is. Now, so you just mentioned like pandemic, and you were working in the store through pandemic.
Wild.
Yeah, what do they call, like Gunmageddon or whatever it was, right? Like, talk about some of the stuff. What was some of the stuff that you, like, obviously nobody could have seen any of that coming, but what was some of the craziest stuff you saw?
I got to say, I mean, the lines were definitely crazy. We had lines almost every single day outside our whole complex, which was just wild to see. No matter how much work you did, there's still a line there waiting for you. Which meant it was really affecting people. People were really scared, and people really didn't know what was going on. There was over like something million, I think, new gun owners in that era.
I don't think we'll really know.
Yeah,
I don't think we'll ever really know. Yeah,
there was a lot. I mean, we weren't the only people going through that. But I got to say, probably the weirdest thing going on is back to the laws and regulations that people really don't understand. Obviously, most common question: I can't take this home today.
I just gave you $800, whatever.
I just took a test and gave you every federal document I have, and I can't take this home. Fortunately not.
So that one surprises me the most still to this day, that people don't understand that that's what's been voted for and passed in legislation, and that you can't just go in and purchase a firearm today and walk out the door, which always comes up in conversation for me for a couple of reasons. One, whether it's a California resident or not, and most oftentimes it ends up being that they are very uninformed with regard to that particular process. Yeah. And I think they, again, like, we have this individual that's run around and now he's murdered people and he's still on the loose. And we always have to wait for the dust to settle and for the things to come out. But I think most of the news outlets, including the independent ones and even the citizen journalists that have their own insight to these things and their own connections, and what's being released by law enforcement and the supporting agencies, is that this guy had a long history of mental illness and making threats. It's
always something like that.
And was already sort of flagged, if you will, to some extent. And that we're just handing out firearms to crazy people. Or we're just handing out firearms to people in general. Do unfit people wind up with firearms? 100%.
100%.
It's going to happen. But again, there's this like false narrative that we're just handing guns out. Like, I can just go to a gun show. There's all these loopholes at a gun show.
No, that's another thing as well I've heard too. It's like, oh, well, I'll just go to the gun show and grab it the same day. It's like, not in this state, buddy. Unfortunately, not in this state.
Yeah, so I can't speak to all the laws in all the other states, but I do want to talk about this one. And I know in some others, New Jersey, New York, wild. Right, very, very restrictive. They're trying to make, and some of the things that we've done here in terms of restrictions have bled over into states like Oregon and now Washington. And so we're starting to see some of this stuff escalate. We're seeing, district courts and circuit courts come back and go.
Very weird time. We're getting a lot of states going up, and then luckily some things in our California stuff are going down. So it's
tough to keep up with.
It's very tough to keep up with, and also time frames. You don't know what's real and what's not, and
it's very hard. And so with all this information that's constantly being passed across the airwaves, mixed with the emotion and the misunderstandings and the flat out lies, as you mentioned, like, it puts the new gun buyer, particularly here in this state, in a very disadvantaged position. And it can be very confusing, and I would imagine very intimidating. And even if you do think there's always going to be a pain point in this process. I have never, ever experienced any time I've ever purchased a firearm or know anybody that hasn't run into some glitch in the process.
Yeah, I've had a few just absolutely flawless transactions, but there's always a little thing that you got about 6 or 7 things that need to all line up, and they all need to be good, which makes sense. I mean, you're doing federal government paperwork. Like, this needs all to line up. But for some people that have never bought for the first time or something like that, they might not know all that stuff is needed to purchase.
Yeah, I want to make a point here, though, that you mentioned, like, okay, so there's 6 or 7 things that need to line up, and I love what you just said there. Is like, they should. Like, we have a process. We're trying to play by the rules here as much as we think the rules may be restrictive or oppressive at some level. I go in as a peaceable law-abiding citizen to exercise my Second Amendment rights, spend my money, right?
Yeah.
Get this product, and I have done all the right things, right? And there's still, or at least seemingly I've done all the right things, and somehow something gets messed up. And sometimes it's human error, but a lot of times it's just what I initially, for me, I think was an unrealistic expectation about a couple things. I was trying to go in really, really patient, but an unrealistic expectation about maybe how one part of the process might be. But the other thing I think is just like I use TSA as an example, right? Like, I could go anywhere in the country. TSA has their certain standards, right? Like, here's their process.
Yeah.
But I've never been to an airport where the process is the same.
Same, yeah.
And you have humans involved in this process. And the barrier of entry to become a TSA agent is clearly very, very fucking low, right? So as long as you got a human involved in that process somewhere, there's going to be a lot of room for things to go wrong in that process.
A little bit of human error, or a little bit of
or just not following the process, or
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm the boss today, so we're doing it this way. And that doesn't make it right, and it doesn't mean one of those the process is good to begin with.
And the off person that does get that, their experiences may be ruined or may be very, very confused from then on out when it doesn't need to be that way.
Right. Does the laptop go in the bag or not?
Yeah.
Like,
do I take my shoes off
or don't I?
Yeah.
You know, what am I doing here? Do I have to put my hands over my head, or what are we doing here? So yeah, all of those things, I think people can relate to that. So going back to like the new gun owner, let's walk through the process for somebody. The day in the life, like of the new gun buyer.
Yeah.
And the person that could be is on the inside of that process from like a retail operator, like a salesman or shop owner's experience.
Yeah, and I've been on both sides. So it, like you said, there's always, if it's not one thing, it's another sometimes. But I mean, a lot of the people that are probably listening that have purchased guns multiple times, they'll have their own little packet ready to go, and they're boom, boom, boom. Those are my favorite transactions because I don't have to think. Everything is there. Everything's good. Don't have to double cross anything. All the I's are dotted. So, I mean, it gets to a real easy process once you've done it the first time and you really understand. And it's really not a lot of like crazy stuff you need.
It's not that difficult.
It's a lot of stuff that you already have and you see every day that you don't even realize.
Right.
So
if I go into this, so let's say I've decided again, I recognize there's a problem, and now I'm taking action to try and fix that problem. And I think the best approach for me is to go in and like, I got to get a gun.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, we already put out there, there's a lot of other things you need to be thinking about, or should be thinking about as a responsible citizen.
Let's say you haven't necessarily, and you're just like, this is my problem right now and I need to solve it. I need to feel safe or comfortable in some sort of way. Or I want to start training, and I want to be able to protect myself and family. Yeah,
which again goes back to this thought process of it's the same thought process of you think you're going to be safe if there are no guns, and this person is thinking I am going to be safe if I have a gun. Both are wrong.
Both are entirely wrong.
Right. So if we get into this, so I walk into the store. What should I like? What's the reality of walking into a firearm store to buy a firearm for the very first time with very little background or experience or knowledge about any of these things?
Yeah, I mean, even for me, being on the other side of the counter, walking into a gun shop that I've never been, don't know the employees, don't know anything like that. It's very like you don't know what you're walking into. You never know kind of who you're going to be dealing with, but it's definitely a shell shock to see all that stuff on the wall for the first time, and in the cases, and just having everything accessible and being able to actually see it in person for the first time is awesome. So I kind of recommend anybody who's going in for the first time, definitely get a feel and get hands-on with a firearm that you like or want to see. Because if you just say, oh, I've been doing a lot of research and on this gun, it does this, and this guy really likes it, I guarantee you're not going to like that gun.
It's funny you should say that. Yeah, like I saw this on Call of Duty. I want to see that gun. It seems like the right gun for me. So I imagine, and because I know I've been around the block a few times, and I've seen a lot of things, as they say. But my point is it can be very overwhelming. Very overwhelming. While it's cool, yes, it could also be very overwhelming. And what questions am I supposed to ask? I don't want to look like an idiot. Yeah, where do I even start in this process?
There's so much to take in as well too, and so many options as well too, depending on what type of dealer you're dealing with or what kind of shop you're dealing with. Some shops will deal only with what they like, and some shops will have anything and everything. So when you have that anything and everything, your mind will go forever and ever.
Yeah, you can get lost.
You can get lost. So it sounds crazy, but definitely don't be scared to talk to people.
So great advice.
Don't be scared to talk to people. Ask their advice. Hey, what are you getting today? Or everyone is in there for the same reason. Everyone is trying to be part of that community in some way. So that's another thing that people, I feel like, overlook or overthink, is that everyone is kind of like this mean, like, oh, 45 won the World War, like type of stuff like that, which is definitely not the case. A lot of people want to help people and make sure that you don't make the same mistakes I did, as in buying maybe this firearm and spending X amount of money in it. And, I don't like it. It's like, oh, well, I could have told you that, dude. Just ask a question. So I think like that's a big thing. Even your sales rep or something like that, ask them questions. Don't stop asking questions, because at the end of the day, this is a firearm. This is something you need to be safe with and you need to like and you need to understand. It's not something you can just grab and be like, all right, yeah, got it. Oh, there's a guy over there and he's coming at me right now. Squeeze. It's not that simple.
So that's that's very good advice for the new gun owner / gun buyer, in that be prepared to ask many questions.
Yeah.
So if you're not sure what questions to ask, I think it's also okay to disclose that. I'm not sure what questions to ask. But what's the reality of walking into a shop when there is a unassuming, uninformed buyer on one side of the counter and a dealer, sales rep, whatever shop owner on the other side that has an agenda today, which is to run their business, make a profit, and sell firearms? Like what are some of the things that are realities of this?
Yeah, so you can get a lot of different reps when you go in, or just employees that all, like I said, all different walks of life in this community. So you can have the one guy that just preaches what he talks. Oh, I shoot revolvers and I really like a revolver. It's small, compact, whatever.
They have their biases.
Whatever their bias is. Or you have, like you said, the shop owner that wants to push his agenda. Oh, we have this on sale today, so this is kind of the only thing we're selling. Or we have this 5 selection of here, but that's really what I'm only going to tell you about. I'm not going to tell you anything else that exists. Or you have those salesmen who are literally there for you. They're like, okay, you haven't shot before? Okay, let me bring you a couple options. Let me bring you this. Let me bring you that.
Without overwhelming.
Overwhelming. I mean, personally for me, it's kind of like exciting and, I'm going to have to do a lot of explaining on this one. But it's more of exciting dealing with that first-time gun owner, because it's like, oh, wow. Like, you probably have some preconceived notions. You probably don't, but I'm going to be able to level them all out for you right now and basically get to show you all your options, show you what the do's and the don'ts are, no matter what kind of manufacturer or what firearm we're pushing that day.
Yeah, there's a lot of gray area in that.
A lot of gray area, but like I said before, do not be scared to ask questions. It's tough. I mean, but no. To me, I mean, you'll have maybe people joke about no question is a dumb question. For first-time gun owners, there's a lot of stuff that are like not correct at all. So having that fine line.
You mean preconceived notions?
Preconceived notions.
Yeah, they're coming in. They're like, so I've heard that this is the right way and this is the wrong way. And you're like, hold on, time out. I don't know where you heard that.
Yeah.
But let me talk you through this. So I think that's important for a new person to understand, and for that person that's been through this process before, not understanding and feeling totally confident, not remembering or not understanding what the person standing next to you, like that loved one that's asking you the question, may have not had an experience at all or had a really poor one. I kind of liken this to, because I'm in the fitness space, like walking into a gym for the first time, not feeling comfortable in your own skin, being sure where to start, what to do, and, asking like, can you just tell me the prices of the gym? Well, if there's options there and there's things that, that you may want to know or don't matter at this point.
Your question might not be as simple as you thought.
You're correct. Yeah, I think so. Great advice. And for anybody, again, listening, that's like, yeah, this is so fucking basic, man. There's no value to this at all. Well, think beyond yourself. And I think that's a lot of the problem in our community, is it's very, very self-absorbed. At a lot of levels. But there are people out there that really want to help you. And that was my experience with you, is like, coming in and going, hey, what can you tell me? And I think I may have been, I'd like to think I was slightly more informed than a lot of people, but I won't go through all the details of my separate experiences there. But the point of this is like, I was trying to build something that I'd never built anything before.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. And it's kind of a weird gray area in California as well, too, because they have these remanufacturing laws that, a lot of dealers have to deal with if they're putting parts in and building stuff for people. So a lot of shops will kind of be gray area between that. So, but in cases like that, it's very tough. It's very tough to make sure that you have what you want and it's all going to coincide and it's all going to work together.
Yeah, it's going to be legal.
It's going to be legal configurations in firearms, or assault rifle, or AR-15s in general, are probably one of the biggest things in California that people are just like, what did you say to me?
Right.
So
it's very misunderstood. And it's confusing. I'm still confused. Like if you ask 3 people that are in a shop at 3 separate times or whatever, you're probably going to hear.
You're probably going to get
variations on the theme, right? Variations on the theme, and that's because of the ridiculousness and how this has gone with all the nuance that's been written into law that
ridiculous wording.
Hard to understand.
It's
hard to understand.
You have to ask 5 people to see if you guys all think that's what it said.
So as a new gun owner, understand that it is, even the folks behind the counter can be confused and or have a tough time articulating it to you in a way that doesn't, because maybe it's not that they don't understand it, they're just trying not to confuse you.
Yeah,
right?
That's a lot of stuff that happened during COVID. I think during the last year, I think you could buy a handgun and a rifle once a month, and then now those are separated, so you can only buy either or once a month, I believe.
I think it may have been a little bit before that. It was right around that time.
Around that
basically,
time.
You can only buy 1 firearm in a 30-day period.
Yes.
I think shotguns are an exception.
Shotguns are an exception. But during that happened,
because shotguns are way
those are insanely
those are different,
leaving bigger holes than anything else. Right?
Somehow it's fine.
Somehow that's okay. Yeah.
Somehow that's okay.
Somehow you can buy that when you're 18 in some states, and it's like cool.
Yeah.
But then they bring it to this other side, and it's
yeah.
So,
again, it's just it's some of the wackiness there. There's not a lot of I don't understand the rationale, but
yeah, we can go on.
Yes, there were all kinds of stuff. People are coming in going like, well, I want a rifle and a pistol. Well. Or a handgun. Sorry, we have to.
That was just for an example, but
we're gonna have to handle this over a couple of month period. Understand this? Okay, so
that stuff is always implemented as fast as you see it online, or as easy as it is.
What's some of the, like, I don't know, if somebody, like, if there's I don't want to call it a roadblock, but maybe like, what's the most annoying stuff that let's just say a buyer comes in with that they think they know. They think they're more informed than they are, and it creates a challenge for you trying to do the right thing for the buyer. Like in terms of like what's in their head. Like what are they, where you're going, hold on, man. Like I get what you're trying to do here, but you don't know. You clearly don't actually know, and I'm trying not to insult you. Let me inform you.
Yeah.
Like do you understand? Am I making sense with the question?
I 100% agree, or get what you're saying. But I think in more instances than not, it's not necessarily the customer or the buyer that's usually doing that. They're usually pretty open ears unless they're kind of like down their 4th or 5th gun. They're like, hey, dude, I kind of know now. I know this process. Okay. But usually, from my experiences, is there's always that one extra little cocky guy that thinks he knows, and will start talking to that new gun owner.
Oh, you mean like another customer?
Yeah, we got 2
running
guys
interference
right
at the desk.
Say,
that definitely has happened to me.
Buddy, you don't want that, or you don't want to do that. You should get this for your wife, or blah 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 blah. Those are, I want to say, maybe top 1 if not 2, or top, just not the business. That's what convolutes people, because I can be saying my whole spiel on how I think a Glock would be a great first handgun for you, and blah 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 blah. But then you have this guy over here saying, yeah, never liked Glock, shot it once, never again.
Right. Mind your own fucking business.
Exactly. So now you got this guy over here that's not, like, is he just trying to sell me on a Glock? Or is this guy right? Because he's actually shooting. He's on this side with me.
It just goes back to the insecurity.
Insecurity. Yeah. So there's stuff like that too. There's definitely people, but I mean, as in a customer standpoint, you really don't get those guys that are on that first time buyer high arc, like I've seen this or that. The most of that is just California's roster of firearms. That's a big deal for people that are new into the firearms industry, that see something being tested or see something new coming out, and they're like, yeah, I want that.
What about, like, I'm going to ask you this one, but what about, this one bothers me the most. That's what I'm going to ask you. It bothers me because I do interact and sort of coexist in a few different worlds out here in this space, and it's very male dominated.
Yeah,
right. Very male dominated. So when females are trying to enter the space or purchase their guns for the first time, or get training or educated or whatever, I find there's less people, at least publicly, like and have the sort of the reach or the platform that are talking to the female buying customer. Yeah. Right. And oftentimes there's some dude running interference there because that's where maybe that female has gone to get information from. You ever run into those? Because I run into that in the fitness business all the time.
It's let me take it from here. Like, let me show you the rope or something like that.
It's obnoxious.
It is. It's like they're not lesser beings. Like any firearm I recommend for a male, I recommend for a female.
Wait, say that again?
Any gun a male could shoot, a female could shoot just as well, if not better. It's a huge stigma that like, oh, I need something for the wife. Let's get her something small. Let her get her something small that fits in the purse, or let's get something that shoots 357 that she has no idea what that's gonna feel like. So yeah, I want to say that is a big misconception of people thinking that women or their significant others need a smaller handgun, when that actually is one of the worst guns to shoot for the first time. I made the same, I wouldn't say my own mistake, but I definitely let it happen. My mom, for her first firearm, wanted this really nice revolver. And she's never shot revolvers, and I'm trying to explain the whole spiel, and it's a snub nose. So she was like, oh, I like it. It's so nice. It's so cute.
Harder to control.
She shot it twice. Didn't finish the cylinder.
I'm done.
Done. I've had same exact stories from other people too.
For you, it's like a misstep, misjudgment, maybe a life lesson of maybe I should stand up and say something. And for her, it's a $600 mistake.
$600 mistake that probably the husband bought, but still at the end of the day, like, you don't want to have to pretend you like this gun every time you go out and shoot with him, or try to.
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people or wives or significant others will get into that just to be around their other significant other. So when you're over here recommending stuff that you don't even shoot, they're probably not going to have a good time either. So yeah, anybody that's trying to get their girl into shooting and stuff, let them shoot your stuff. Just let them shoot your stuff. I doubt you have some crazy stuff that they can't handle.
Right.
I doubt you're shooting 357 every day out of a revolver or 10 millimeter or something.
I don't know too many people doing that.
That's what I'm saying. We're in a different day now that a lot of the things are very controllable and very fit for everybody.
Right.
So
you're out there with your $6,000 handgun and you're trying to.
You're like, oh, I don't know if she could shoot this though.
Putting her into a micro.
Yeah.
Some type of micro compact thing.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
I'm not saying all small guns are bad. No, don't recommend those. I'm just saying, as a first time gun owner, I highly recommend not doing that.
I think it's really good advice.
Yeah.
It's not probably the gun to learn how to be proficient.
No.
Right. And efficient with.
No.
It sort of makes sense. So there's some conventional wisdom that maybe goes into this. Yes, it's compact. It's concealable. I don't want anybody to see this or know that I have it.
Which makes perfect sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Also, like, you gotta think about more of situationally, environmentally, and where you're at geographically. Like, are you going to be able to even get a CCW? Like, how long is that process going to take? If you're buying a gun to specifically get a CCW, make sure you're in a location where you can get it and you can actually go through the whole process and you're not a prohibited person, or because there's a bunch of stuff that goes into that people are like, I'll get all the way to the finish line and, I can't cross it because I didn't see all these other things.
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
Again, which then creates all kinds of issues.
I've had tons of incidences where, for firearm purchases, during this 10-day wait that you have in California, first day you do your paperwork, the 10th day you come and pick it up. If for some reason you have anything in your background, you will be either denied or undetermined. We've had some people be undetermined, meaning they can't pick up their firearm because of parking tickets or because of unpaid child support or just little things just like that trickles you all the way down.
I'm going to say child support isn't a little thing. But,
no. But
that's neither here nor there.
Some people that don't think about that.
They have a bench warrant because they got a summons to show up for jury duty that they didn't know about, and or unpaid parking tickets somewhere.
Yep. All those.
And you're flagged, and so you can't go in there. So let's talk about this because I think these are the things that people really want to know. And again, these are what create the most frustration. And it doesn't need to. If you knew about this going in, these things. You're finding out about like the law and the tickets all at the same time. Like it's like a double whammy of like, what the fuck is going on?
First time to the gun shop or to a firearm shop could be a very wide or very weird day or big day for you. Because you're like, Okay.
So let's talk about it. So let's say I've gotten this great experience from Alex behind the counter. He's recommended this, and maybe even, he's even recommended some instruction for me that, a person that I can connect with to learn how to use this thing properly and train with regularly and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm ready to make my purchase. So I've decided I'm buying this gun. Now, what's next? What should I expect to do? What do I need to be prepared for? And then we can talk about the pitfalls and the things that happen along the way.
Yeah. So, not jumping ahead, but basically your first step will usually be, if not the first or the second after you figure out which firearm you'd like to purchase, is taking the firearm safety test.
Okay. So you have to secure a firearm safety card.
Firearm safety card.
And how does that happen?
So that can only be implemented at a gun shop by a DOJ instructor, which majority of the time you'll have, if not one or two on the sales floor, which is not something for a customer to worry about. But just the test is $25 and it's good up to 5 years.
Who gets the money?
15 goes to the state, and I believe 10 goes to the shop.
Okay, so they're being paid. So the shop's making some money for administering this and handling
for administering the test. The state is getting their little back end on it as well too.
Of course they are.
Of course they don't stop.
Okay, so I have to, and so talk to me about this test. Like, what's the test like? What could you compare it to?
The test is. It's mostly a common sense test. I mean, to me personally, going over it constantly and just reiterating it to people and just kind of explaining of what that test is. A lot of people think is like, oh, if you shoot at 500 yards, what is the drop in velocity? It's like, I don't know.
It's definitely not that.
Like, no, it is nothing. It is like, can you shoot through a door? Yes. It is questions like that. And it is stuff, should you put your finger on the trigger? It's like, these are all very open-ended questions that have a very strict answer to. So it's not I want to say the test is someone's, I haven't taken a test since high school. That's my favorite quote, is when I used to hand people tests, is, I haven't taken a test from high school. I'm so nervous and stuff like that.
I would compare this test much like to the DMV driver and renewal test. It's very much the same.
Yeah, what do you do when you see this sign?
People go, but I drive every day and I kind of get it, and I've had my driver's license and I've already passed that test or whatever else, but it really is more or less the same.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's very easy to get online. I don't want to say even a monkey could take it, because I don't want to be disparaging to people that fail.
I've seen some crazy fails, but
most of the people I know that are nervous about it going in do just fine. But in order to even start the process, you have to have this firearm safety card.
You have to pass this test.
Basically, what that's stating is that you have some level of understanding of what safe handling of a firearm looks like, kind of what it's capable of, and there's some do's and don'ts.
Do's and don'ts. You got a little bit of verbiage in there. You're at step one, and what this card really does, if you want to keep going.
No, I was just gonna say, I just kind of popped into my head here that, whether you issued these cards or not, this would be a great test for anybody. And I'm a huge proponent of this. Put it in the schools. You want people to understand, they don't have to have guns.
No.
Right? Just put the test in the school so that people have to...
For just safety. There's
just education.
As of the long list of stuff that should be added to schools.
If you ever came across a firearm, would you understand these basic do's and don'ts, right? So, and to again, maybe take the edge off or educate people.
Unfortunately, I hate saying this, with all these school shootings and unfortunate events that happen like that, might not be a crazy idea for people to identify and realize what's safe and what's not.
Somebody will say I'm an extremist for even suggesting this, but anyhow, so you have to take your FSC card now. So now you've passed your test and you get this card, and this card is good for life. This
card is good for 5 years. Okay. So if you want to get it renewed, you do have to, or lose it. If you want to get it renewed, regardless, you have to take a new test. But if you do lose this card, and then in that span of 5 years, you have to go back to the exact employee that issued it to you.
To just have one reissued?
Just reissued, and he signs it, you signed it, good to go.
Got it. Or you'd have to retake
Or you retake the test, another $25.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no way around that. Your 5 years is your 5 years, $25, you're done. So
okay. So I just want to be clear. This is not this is not like a master's degree.
It's not a master. It's the most basic.
Super basic. Okay.
Basic understanding, yes.
Then what happens?
Yes, you get your card, and that card allows you to do basically paperwork on any firearms transaction in California.
Well, let's talk about that paperwork.
Yeah, so without that card, you really can't do anything. So that's kind of your very first step. Even if you don't know what gun you want, it wouldn't be bad just to go take a test. But
To be ready.
To be ready.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing better than, for me on from a sales standpoint, is seeing someone with all of their documents, and they've done the little research that they can do without me giving the rest of them too.
Cool. So that could help your process just in general by being in front of it.
Yeah. But then there's on the flip side of that, you got some shops that for a while at my local shop that we were doing, we didn't offer just the test because of how much volume we had. We didn't have just time.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, we didn't have time.
I had to renew my card for you guys, and it was like, we're not doing those right now because we have a line out the door. So you're going to have to do that somewhere else.
If you were looking to purchase firearms or something like that, then obviously we'll get you taken care of and all that good stuff. But if you were renewing it just to renew it and no absolute reason,
that makes perfect sense to me.
It's because it doesn't make, if this license was to go be expired or anything and you don't renew it,
there's no penalty.
There's no penalty. Your gun doesn't work anymore or something like that. Right. It's not, your paperwork isn't dead. There's nothing.
You're not an illegal firearms owner. Yeah.
No. You can take one test, buy one gun,
be done
forever. Nothing.
Okay, so that's really good, sound knowledge. I think a lot of people are caught off guard by that. I think the next part of this, they kind of realize they've heard stuff about. Like, so now there's some other more complicated paperwork I got to figure out, or I have to fill out, and this is where mistakes could be made, or I have to check the right box, or whatever else. Can we just walk through that briefly?
Yeah, walking through that is going to be pretty much the same for majority of the states. If not all of them, I'm pretty sure all of them. Filling out the federal form of the 4473. So that's the little packet everyone is filled out. Where the front you have a list of check boxes. Well, let's start from the top. So when you're filling out this paperwork, it's going to start with whatever firearm you picked out, and it's going to be on the top with its make, model, serial number, all that good stuff.
Yep.
And then you go into
the firearm you're purchasing is being registered.
Is being registered to you and your current address and your being as a person.
Got it.
So the next thing we'll go into is your full name, place of birth, and current county and city you're living in along with address and all that good stuff. And then it'll jump into some race questions, which don't really make sense, but I mean, I guess it helps with their demographic of who's buying what. Or,
I'm not even going there.
Yeah, I hate the little part anyways. And then it goes into basically,
I just know I have to check 2 boxes when I get there.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
I know there's 2 boxes I have to check in that particular thing. Why do I know that? Because I asked questions about it the very first time I had to redo this.
Yeah.
Because it changed from the previous years.
They change it almost every year.
It's wild.
If not location on the form, it's some verbiage or something that's been implemented to the form
again,
to make it a little bit more.
Not making the process any easier.
No. Yeah.
Okay. So what is predictable is they're going to change it. So, but what isn't?
It's always not crazy, but what is predictable is that you're always going to have your firearm tied onto there. You're always going to have your name and address and place of birth. And you're always going to have a list of checklists of saying, it goes on forever, but it's basically yes or no questions as from, are you buying this for somebody else? Are you a prohibited person for yourself? Are you addicted to this or mental health issues? And
so let's slow down through here because I think this is a thing like you don't just put your name and address on the form. They put the serial number from the firearm on it.
You're answering a lot of very personal federal questions to yourself that need to line up.
So have you ever been convicted or adjudicated in court for misdemeanor or felony?
Misdemeanor, felony.
Okay. That's one. This is, again, state of California. I don't know what it's like to buy it in other states, but I assume it's very similar, if not the same. The other one there is like, are you currently in the midst of being adjudicated or have any judgments against you, including things like child support or anything like that? So you have to answer that question.
You in court for basically, anything along the lines of that.
Have you ever, I think one of those is like, have you ever served in the military?
Yep. Have you served in the military?
One is, have you ever been hospitalized, I think, for lack of a better term, for 5150 or for some mental illness? That's on there as well. Something about drugs? Like, have you ever been
drugs? You've been convicted of, I think it's alcohol or I think it says alcohol in there. Yeah, for the verbiage.
Any type of crime related
stuff. Yeah.
With regard to that, what am I missing? I mean, those are kind of like the major ones.
Those are pretty the major ones for that first kind of section, and then you get onto the backside that just kind of more of like if you were on like an I-94 or a visa. in the country or in the state.
Yeah, like, are you a U.S. citizen? Do you claim residence here? Oh, yeah. One of the questions is, have you ever denounced your U.S. citizenship?
Yes, that is along with the whole visa stuff as well too. So you have to go through. It's very extensive questions, but once you get through it the first time, you're kind of like, all right, I know what applies to me and what doesn't.
Okay, so as you're going through this paperwork, and that's people are going, so big deal. You have to answer some questions. You could lie. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing to understand here is where this is going is this is going to be checked. It goes on record, and you have to go through a background check. So if there's any false statements there that are on record, and if you were convicted, if you haven't, it's going to be on record somewhere. It's going to flag, and this would obviously come up in a background check. So again, going back to like, you could lie, you could say whatever on that thing.
Yeah, you could lie or say whatever, but it's going to come back. It's going to come back eventually.
And in doing so, you sign at the bottom saying if you lie, it's a felony. You've basically committed a felony for doing that, which then, if convicted, would mean you're not buying a firearm ever
you're done.
Anyway.
You're done for life.
So there's some risk involved in making sure that this is filled out properly and that you're fully aware of your background. And again, things have come up. I had a thing once, so I had to go renew my driver's license. And I had to go renew my driver's license, and I let it expire. And
no good.
Yeah, it was like, it sucked. It always happens at like during my birthday's on President's Weekend, and there's always like a ski weekend or something in there. God. And so we're always gone. And like, I'm like, I never think about it. Like, I just never think about my ID expiring, and they never tell me.
You never think that year is going to get there.
No, and they never tell me. They never send you like the warning going, hey, by the way, just as a heads up, in a couple of months, your ID is going to expire. They don't care. Right. So I was out like on this holiday weekend, and I gave my ID to somebody to check in, like, hey, your ID's expired. I was like, what? Really? Oh, shit. And I think I was denied checking into a hotel or something. I had to put it on somebody else's credit card because they needed, oh, we can't take your ID because it's expired. I'm like, this is so dumb. So,
which is the wildest thing.
But I go into the DMV. I do the whole thing, man. I sit there. I wait in line. I get called to the desk to renew, and they say, you can't renew. You were involved in you were an uninsured motorist in an accident. And I went, well, what? I was like, no, I've never been in an accident. Like, well, you're going to have to show me that you had insurance during this time. I go, first off, I was never in an accident. Secondly,
so why am I showing proof of something?
Why do I have to show proof of something that never happened? Yeah. So I'm standing there again. This is now 2 hours into the process. I'm being informed that I've basically been driving around. If I had been pulled over, if I'd been pulled over for whatever reason, I go, and I asked the lady, I go, so I'm just finding out about this now. First off, this never happened. Somebody reported like some of the paperwork got messed up somewhere.
And it somehow landed on you.
Some human did something, or the technology wound up this way, where I was now basically in this system. And I asked her, I said, so what would have happened if I'd have been pulled over with my kid on the side of the road or something like that in the back seat? Well, technically speaking, they could detain you, have your car towed, right? Because you're an uninsured, or you basically have been driving around as fleeing the scene of an accident, or,
Yeah, which is like,
it's like, what the fuck? What are we even talking about here?
Which some people just,
So then I had to go through this whole process of finding the insurance. This was like 2 years prior. And so I had to find an insurance card.
Supposedly drive around for 2 years
with this thing.
That's
and
crazy.
I'd not been pulled over for a ticket or anything.
And
so
why
I
would you go
know.
to the DMV?
Why would I go?
Needed to do something.
How am I supposed to know this? This is my point. Like, it's happened to me, so it could happen to anybody. So having your shit together.
Oh, I've had countless people. I've even done it. I've seen both IDs, or I've seen their driver's license and their firearm safety card. I thought I checked both expiration dates. Went through, going through the paperwork. Oh, so actually expired. So it happens to everybody. Right. I mean, we're all human, making human errors, but stuff like that, you just might not ever be prepared for.
Yeah, I don't want to beat this up. I just want people going in to avoid the same things, like you said. Like, don't learn the lessons the way I learned the lessons, or where you learn the lessons.
Don't put yourself in that mindset of you. Oh, I know I haven't paid this, that it might convolute me with this purchase. And then nothing's worse than going through that purchase knowing that, or even not knowing that, and then you get to the undetermined or denied phase, and you're like, oh my God, like, what
happened?
Yeah, what happened?
You don't even know.
What
did I do?
The mind just goes crazy. I've seen it right there in hand, completely losing their minds, losing minds at us. There's a lot of a lot of stuff can happen.
So again, like understanding where you are
Yeah.
in life before you go in there, because this shows up. Like if you get denied for this,
It does show up.
If you go in to buy a new firearm, you have 10 of them. But on this time, it's been 2 years. You're Scott. It's been 2 years. At some point, somebody reported you as an uninsured motorist in an accident. And this is on your record now. It's in your background as recorded by the DMV. And I go in there and I go, I don't have any issues. I don't have any issues. I don't have any issues. You run the thing and it comes back. Now I'm flagged. Now I'm in the system as this guy, and I don't know what it is. I'm not told what it is.
Yeah.
And if I said to you, okay, cool, well, just sell me some ammo for the guns that I have, you're not going to be able to do that for me either in the state of California, because they're going to run a background check on ammo sales as well, which is another
That's
thing
a whole other can of worms we can
talk about. So it's shit that you got to be aware of.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go through this form, right? And then it goes into the background check situation, which we can get back to if we need to. But what else has to be done? What else do I have to do on that first
So once you're kind of filled out with those little sections of questions, you probably got like 15 questions you're going through to make sure. I mean, the shop owner or the employee that's with you can't necessarily answer it for you, but he can kind of help you walk you through it more of a way, like kind of reiterate it.
Okay.
But going back to those laws and stuff like that, if people do get denied or do get, if you're denied, it's usually something you've done and you know. If it's undetermined, it's usually something that might not be brought to light as you might know, or it's just something that didn't line up, or even could be you bought too many guns in the same month. That could leave it to as well too. But one thing I will say for anyone listening that goes through that process and does get undetermined or denied, that shop person that you're working with does not know why. They do not know why. They're reading a screen that says denied, undetermined, and that's all the information they get. They get nothing else. So, which I've dealt with a lot, and a lot of people want to put the blame on the shop owner, or hey, you put my information wrong.
Right?
Which is incorrect. Any gun shop you go to, they should give you a copy of your paperwork before they submit it and after.
Anytime I've ever made a purchase, I've had to verify that everything is right before I go in.
Yeah,
so
because
it actually goes through 3 people.
Yep.
The person that's filled it out, the person, let's say the rep helping you.
Yep.
It always gets double checked. The policy of the shops that I've always, it gets double checked against maybe the manager on duty or
anybody that's nearby that's also can do paperwork. Yeah.
And then it comes to you, the customer, to where you're checking off. If that isn't happening in your shop, that's a red flag. And I would be, they're not to say that they're not being thorough.
Yeah. If you don't see the double checking, then okay. But if you're not at least getting some copy of your paperwork or seeing it before it is submitted, then I would, definitely ask for that. Or,
I mean, one of the first things my dad taught me was don't sign anything ever without reading it. And anything you sign, get a copy of.
Yeah.
So, all right. So these are basic 100%. Things.
Basic things, but just sometimes it might be overlooked for some people.
All right. So what else you got? What else do I got to do as a new guy?
So some other things. So once you got that all taken care of, they have a safe affidavit form, which goes over how are you going to securely lock and secure this firearm. And then that kind of also goes over with the employee telling you over like the do's and don'ts of when you can travel with it and stuff like that. Like just because you have a firearm now doesn't mean you have a license to carry. Unfortunately not. So that's something that's iterated in there. And so you write down your safe make and model.
So we got to time out here.
Yeah. So we'll double back. So a safe affidavit is basically
so it's not being safe. It's being safe, but it's also owning a safe. A safe. You're required to. You're required by state law to own a safe or a place to safely store this firearm.
In order to even leave with your firearm or sign off on it, you have to have been walked through the proper care and taking care of and storage of firearms, and you also have to be through the process of handling and manipulating that firearm as well too. So you should be almost as good as me knowing every single button that works on that gun before you leave that shop.
So that ideally,
right? I mean, being there your first time, there's going to be so much stuff that you're probably not even going to remember what your name was by the end of the day. But
going back to the safe affidavit, basically you're required to say, yes, I understand that I have to safely store this firearm. Here's the things that I need to do in order to do that. You're writing the safe model number down. So you're basically saying, I own this safe. This is where this firearm is.
I have a Liberty,
whatever.
And that's what's going to be my safe.
So this is a California thing, right? This is a California thing. And so again, you're They made all these steps. This was legislation that had to be passed to go in and say.
And a lot of the firearms as well come with their own locks, which I don't recommend anyways, but I would highly get a safe. But yeah, so it's kind of just an extra step. And then it also implements the part of safe handling too.
Right. So the safe handling thing is actually when you come to pick it up, right, you have to show that you are able to safely manipulate it. That is load, unload,
show clear.
Make safe. Yeah.
Make safe. All that good stuff.
So there's some level of demonstration or tell, show, do that has to happen before you're leaving. But we haven't gotten to that part yet. We're still, we haven't even.
Yeah. So as in paperwork, we'll keep it there. Safe affidavit, that's what that is on its own. You're writing down the person's safe and where it's going and how it's being safely stored. Then it comes to more of the kind of tough part where it comes to making sure all your documents in your name are also all the same.
This is the worst part.
All current and all valid, meaning not expired. They're all good things. For ARs or we'll just go with rifles or shotguns, are a lot easier to kind of get all your paperwork for. If your current identification card or driver's license has your current address on there and you've already taken your test,
your FSC test,
those two documents, you're done.
You're good.
Your address is your current address. Perfect. And if it wasn't, then you would just provide a address showing that that's where you live.
Through what? So there's a couple different things that the state allows, but the biggest and easiest one that I always recommend for people, car registration. Because it has to be a state-issued document showing that everything kind of connects to each other. Yep.
So usually what everyone brings and everyone usually has in their car is their car registration that's valid. I haven't come across it too many times that people don't have like a valid car or a valid car registration, or when they do, they figure out just right then and there.
They come there, they recognize, my ID doesn't match my car registration. I can tell you mine doesn't right now because I just recently moved.
Yeah. So
which creates issues, which we'll talk about later for me. But yeah, so in order for me to fix this, I have to either get the address changed on my ID. I just moved like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Or I have to change the registration on my, basically I have to make sure that the registration for my vehicle matches what's on my ID.
They have to match.
Right.
Yep. Or if they don't and you haven't had the time to switch them, or I mean, one of them or both are probably going to be out of date if you are moving. So, there's other options. So, I mean, if you are moving, it's going to be a little bit difficult just because that's usually what the documents work with. I mean, you can use a lease agreement and that would deal with your new address, or if you're currently living there, that's work fine. You just need the signatures and the pricing and the address of where you are located at, so that all coincides. Another thing is power bill. Power bill works as well too. We got some other stuff like hunting license, fishing license. People use just state issue documents that are really just convoluted or connected to your other state documents, like your license. But yeah, a lot of people, the first or not second one is either a PG&E bill, power bill, or a car registration.
So here's a caveat on the ID thing. So if you don't have the real ID, the state issued real ID now here in the state of California.
Glad you brought that up.
This was an issue for me because when I just renewed my ID on going back to the whole renew. I told you that story about how I got caught up in the DMV.
Just stayed there for hours.
I hadn't renewed it again. That was the last time I renewed it until my last birthday, which was this last February. I just renewed it again. And then I moved from that address after.
They're loving you over there right now.
Right. But what I didn't have was the state issued real ID on my previous ID. They didn't even exist and I hadn't gone through the process yet. Now I've cleared that, just have the wrong address on there. But my point of this being is that because it wasn't the real ID, I had to show a second form.
Yes. So
even though my address is matched.
Yeah, that's fine. You can have everything can be matched.
But I had to have another ID, in which case was my birth certificate.
Yep. Which is the only thing that will suffice for that.
So if you're in the state of California, you don't have the real ID yet, which you're supposed to. They keep pushing it out. I think it's actually next
passport
year.
as well. Sorry.
Yeah, you can have a passport, but again, everything has to match up. You still have to have two forms.
Yes, so that does not have to do, because I've had to say this more times than I thought I ever would, but your birth certificate doesn't have your address on there. So it doesn't work as your other proof of residency.
Of residency.
Yes. So that's what you always need to provide as a proof of residency.
Yeah, people are already so confused, and you should be.
You should. Right? It is a lot to bring on your first day. I mean, most, if not all, don't have all that stuff their first day. So you see a lot of gun shops will, oh, okay, you have this and this. Most people have their car registration so we can get the ball rolling. But a lot of the thing is birth certificate. A lot of people haven't seen that in a long time or even know where it's at. So that is a caveat to some people. Anyone who's listening, if you don't know what the real ID is basically, if you look at your ID, if it says federal limits apply, that means you do not have a real ID. You're looking for a golden bear on your ID.
Yeah, for California folks.
For California folks. If you have the golden bear, you are all good.
Yeah, I think this was a frustrating thing for me.
Yeah.
This is going to come up again later.
It was frustrating for me too. Like you said, like I had my ID for the longest sideways federal limits apply. And I just waiting until it expired so I can get a new one. But every time I had to bring my birth certificate to do a firearm purchase or ammo purchase as well too, which we'll get into.
So I think what's important for people to understand what we're doing is we're tying a person, right, to a firearm and a location.
In every way possible.
In every way possible. So again, for those people that think we're just handing out guns to whoever walks into wherever.
If you think handing out is giving over 4 pieces of document, location,
with addresses
and waiting 10 days.
My social security number, my address, my phone number, my fucking... It's a fingerprint is required.
You get a fingerprint.
You have to fingerprint.
Get to that, yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So am I done yet? Can I get into my 10-day waiting period yet?
You're almost done.
Oh shit.
So
what else I gotta do, man?
If you got all that stuff, you're on a good track. You're definitely good to go. But I mean, as a lot of gun shops will take of stuff in different orders. Like a lot of I know we started doing this towards the end. It was like if we did a safe handling demo with our guy or girl the first day. Almost half the time, if not more, when we tell them to do it again, which you don't have to tell them to do again, it's just one time. But anytime that someone is a first time goner, we like to see, did what I say that day? Because a lot of it will be a very interesting day for you and very, you'll feel like there's a lot of pressure, but there's not. I mean, just the first time you do anything, first time you walk on stage, the first time you walked and talked in front of somebody or gave a presentation at school, it feels horrible every single time. But when you do it that second time, it's not as bad. You know what I mean? So it gets easier and easier once you have your stuff. But yeah, once you get all your documents done, you do your safe handling demo. We'll say we do that on the first day. We get your safe all taken care of. Once all that's triple, quadruple checked, we submit it to the state. So the state gets a very quick and easy version of what you filled out on that packet.
This is the State Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Not the federal DOJ.
So they are split. DOJ. They are split. So even when we're done filing our paperwork and you're out the door and you're 10 days down the line, whatever the case may be, we do actually have to separate all that paperwork we just did into federal and to state.
Okay. So what happens?
So the 4473 is that federal part. So we're basically taking the good stuff from that, which is a series of questions and your address and the firearm and all that good stuff. So there's a couple questions on that 4473 that will make or break you. We've seen some that click yes, but it had nothing they thought wrong.
Yeah, they just read the question wrong.
The question wrong, so it needed to be reiterated. So you can always go back and kind of do that. You're not just like, oh, I clicked it, I'm screwed. It's not necessarily like that. Okay. You'll get the state. We'll implement all the information that you gave us on that federal document, and we'll put it on the state document, which is sent digitally to them. And then we'll print that out to make sure everything's basically in line with the 4473 and then in line with you as well too.
Okay.
So once that's all done, everything's good. You hit submit. It brings out another piece of paper which looks identical to the one that we give you, and you give a right thumbprint and your signature, and that will solidify your 10 days.
So this very quick submission process happens right there in front of you.
Right then and there.
It comes out, okay, we are good. We've double checked. Now you're submitting your thumbprint, right? Which is another form of identification, record keeping, background check, stuff. If you've been lit up in the system before for anything.
Yes.
As if they didn't have enough. And now they have a thumbprint.
Yeah.
So if you're in the system that way, you can be identified or denied that way as well.
the thing is that like all that paper stuff never gets sent anywhere. It's all just at that shop and will stay at that shop.
Which is wild.
Which is wild.
So all of my personal information.
So that thumbprint, that personal
my address, my birth certificate, copy of my birth certificate, my ID,
literally
the location of my gun, what gun I have, how many. If I bought 5 from you, they're all there at that gun shop. It is all there. How is this stuff stored? Because you have to keep hard copies.
You have to keep hard copies for 20 years.
20 years.
20 years. And this is just to make sure that when you do get audited by these agencies, that you are practicing good business models and you are taking care of your paperwork and you are doing X, Y, and Z.
What's the requirement for the security of this paperwork?
It just has to be a literal area. There's no storage or anything compared to like the guns and stuff like that.
All right, so this is again, I think this might blow people's minds. So you've taken all this information, you have everything, basically my whole life in front of you, right? In order to purchase a firearm. And then I give that all to you. I finally get my stuff. I walk out of there. I feel safe and protected with regard to my physical stuff. But all of my personal and private information just needs to be in a quote unquote area. So does the shop have to sign some of the affidavit that said I have a safekeeping of all this paperwork and it has to be behind this and I sign that these are my processes and my procedures for keeping all of this personal information for all these people I guess confidential and that nothing's going to happen to it, and if my shop gets broken into, I've got these levels of security and all that. Does any of that exist?
They do, but from my understanding, not necessarily for the paperwork.
That's my point.
Yeah. I mean, we do have it in like, we had it in locked cabinets and stuff like that, but there's nothing stopping you from picking up a cabinet. But there is stuff implemented in that way for firearms and the security of the shop.
Okay, so we got to keep the firearms safe, but the people's information.
The security of the shop as well too. So that's kind of what they are big on. So that kind of, you can fit that into the paperwork and stuff like that. But I mean, if any gun shop out there has enough storage to fit their firearms and their paperwork in their safe, send me a picture because I want to see what that looks like.
I think we leave it at that.
Yeah.
I think we leave it at that.
It is tough. It is tough.
I mean, you have a whole other space. Like,
I mean, just doing, like I said, 1.2, whatever. I don't even know the real number of new firearms owners in that pandemic time.
There's stacks of paperwork for every one of those.
I believe the first weekend of that, I wasn't there, but I definitely got the rest of it. But the first 2 days of that was absolutely insane for the guys. They stayed there for about 12 at night, or 12 or 1 a.m. just to make sure the paperwork was done perfectly. And looking at paperwork for that long
gonna happen
for that amount of time. We're all human. It's gonna happen. So having all that paperwork, making sure it's all perfectly entailed and together and in a secure location is all a very big deal and a whole different
seems very
thing.
Antiquated, man.
It is crazy the stuff, and they don't help us provide with paper. They don't help with ink. They don't help with printers. They don't help with any of that. We have to buy our own ink pads. We have to do all this stuff.
Yeah, but it's tax deductible.
Oh, yeah.
It's a tax write-off.
Write-off, yeah.
So, all right. So I'm in my background period. You've submitted this stuff. I gave you my thumbprint. Sorry. So now we're in the background.
Yes. Yeah, so you'll get your paper, and at the top left corner, it will tell you the time that you submitted it, and it is 10 24-hour periods. So it is down to the second.
Yeah, the second.
Yeah. So if you did it at
4 p.m.
4 p.m. on a Saturday, 10 exact 24-hour periods from that Saturday, maybe
what's that? That's like a Tuesday or something like Tuesday or Wednesday at 4 p.m.
So you can't pick it up until 4:01.
Got it.
So it's down to that. We've even had some like slightly over a couple minutes, but during the pandemic time, since there were so many people buying, people weren't getting approved in 10 days. They were getting approved from anywhere from about 13 to 14, 15 days.
Yeah, this is happening in Oregon since they switched on their little debacle up there, and it's taking 30 or more days for people to go through the process. Okay, so I go through. So I'm waiting out.
Double going.
No,
back,
that's okay. Yeah. No, I think it sounds crazy to some extent. So for people living in like other freer states, they're just going, this is
sorry
insane.
Not to make it sound boring or crazy.
I could drive across the border to Arizona, right? And
hours. hours you can drive
best.
somewhere and you can have everything you want, no bad of an eye. You have people more of giving it to you. Hey, let's go shoot after you're done.
Right.
Like,
so in terms of the processes, there are still processes involved, but this wait period and all the additional extra safe things and these affidavits and all this other stuff.
Which I'm all for as well, too. I don't think it should just be about, oh, name, you're going to live here. Cool.
I'm with you.
I don't think it should be as that easy. I personally don't even have a problem with the 10-day wait. I know it's crazy, but the 10-day wait is anybody who actually has firearms, the 10 days is whatever.
I think people are getting used to it.
Yeah, I definitely
I don't necessarily think it's a good thing. I think anything you're doing to make it uncomfortable for people or disruptive for people to exercise their rights is a problem.
It is definitely.
What I have a problem with is doing this under the guise that it somehow is going to change things from like a violence perspective, which it clearly, any data you look at has not changed a thing. It's only continue to get worse because there's other issues. And I don't want to open up that, but here's the thing. Like, that's my problem with the 10-day waiting. Why do we do it? If it was doing what you said it's supposed to be doing as a legislator, as a governor, as an attorney general or whatever else, then why do we have these issues?
Why is it not digressing?
Because you said it was going to fix this, and it hasn't fixed it at all. That's my bigger problem with it. So if
100%,
if
the reason behind it,
if you could show me at the end of the day that you're doing what, and this is doing what you said you were going to do by having this done, I might be on board with this. But because you're not, and you can't, and more specifically, I'm showing you that it's the opposite of what you said. That's my bigger problem with it. So again, getting off the soapbox there, I didn't want to make this talk about that, but that's we
have a lot of stuff in here, California guys. So
but we've dealt with it.
We've dealt with it, and we've learned how to get around it.
So
and we've learned how to still bring people in and realize that, you know,
this is what we have to deal with. So as long as you're a peaceable, law-abiding citizen, you can get through this process.
Exactly, you have nothing to worry about. I mean, and also these people that are committing these crimes and they're doing these crazy things, they're not going through this process. They're going through 3D printed people that make crazy stuff online or whatever.
They're just buying stolen guns or whatever else. I think that's the point I'm hoping people that don't understand this process are getting. Like, well, yeah. So when you hear somebody say, but crooks are not going through this process, now you know why.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to go through that process.
They can't make it through the first one.
They wouldn't be able to make it anyways.
They can't,
So that's why. And I'm not saying if you took it away, it somehow changes it for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't change it for them. You're only punishing, again, or
even going back to
oppressing the people that are trying to do the right thing.
Exactly.
But to your point, we've worked around it. We're doing fine. I just, any more of this business is and even be talking about escalating it beyond to where it is just fries me.
Yeah.
But trying to remain positive here, I go through my 10 days. I got to wait out my 10 days.
Yeah. So right? I give you a paper, tells you when exactly you can come back, and you don't have to get it on that 10th day either. You have like 30 days
to pick it up.
So you have another 20-day window to do that. And if you don't pick it up in that time, you just have to go through the whole thing.
The whole process
over again. So you're filling paperwork out. You're providing the documents again.
Another 10-day wait.
You're waiting the 10 days again. You're doing all.
You're sending your shit to the background.
Yep.
Through the background.
All of it again.
All that paper has now just been doubled up and it's sitting in
which
an
I've
area.
had several times.
Okay, so which is wild to me. Like I want the thing that I just paid $600 and went through all that stuff for. So I come in to pick it up. What happens? Pretty simple.
If you've brought all your documents and you've done all your safety demonstrations, you have your safe documented on where you're gonna keep your gun, you have all that good stuff. It is simply as going in, signing, doing your same thumbprint, walking out the door.
Okay, so can I just so now I'm the new gun owner, right? And I got this new gun, and here it is. It's on the counter. Can I just put it in my hand and walk out to my car with it?
No. So we've seen some crazy things, but no, definitely, because obviously, like you said, if you had a CCW, then there you go. But even then, you'd still have to register that firearm.
It can't be seen,
CCW,
and it can't be seen. It has to be concealed. That's the whole point of that thing.
Yeah. So we do our best to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just give it not advice, but like kind of the legal kind of thing is that you can't just be out with your firearm for no reason. You have to have probable cause for this firearm. Like, for example, if you got pulled over when you're leaving and you just picked up your gun, just like, I'm leaving the gun shop right now.
Makes perfect sense.
Makes perfect sense. A lot of people just throw it in the trunk. That's what I do a lot of the time, and that's considered a locked compartment, but depending on what car you have.
So that's where I was going. So this thing has to leave in a locked compartment.
Locked compartment. So what my kind of order of operation was at the time was I would show you how to safely handle and demonstrate this firearm, and then I would show you how to actually lock it in a secure way as well too. That also, if you needed to actually grab it, it wouldn't be another hindering process for you.
Yeah, so there are ways to safely secure your firearm and minimize the accessibility of it.
Correct.
But bottom line is it has to be transported.
It has to be transported in a locked container.
And that locked container needs to be separated from the ammunition, which we're going to get into in a second.
Yeah.
So I could go out to my car, put it in my container and in my locked trunk, and I'd be kind of I'd be double covered there.
You'd be good.
I'd be double covered.
Yeah.
But if it was in a locked container in my back seat, still okay.
It really, like I said,
you could be raising a red flag.
You could be raising some red flags.
If you're pulled over by law enforcement, that thing's just sitting on the back seat, and all they're seeing is the container. That's going to raise flags for me.
Any cop is going to ask,
"Where's the firearm
going on?"
Right?
Yeah.
So, but the point of this is it has to be in a locked container. You need to be prepared for that. You need to buy a lock.
Yeah.
You need to have a container for it. They usually come in some type of a box,
which you're usually already given a lot of the time.
Yeah,
so almost every handgun will come with a lock. So,
but you need to be prepared for that. Maybe it doesn't, and you need to be able to obviously demonstrate that you can secure it, but also have it secured when you leave.
Yes,
that's a thing.
And worst case scenario that you don't have a lock. Almost all firearm shops sell a designated FSD purchased lock,
right?
Because there's only there's a big difference between a safe and then an actual trigger lock. I would always recommend
there's different styles, yeah,
exactly. Right. But if you're like, oh, I have a safe, but I don't have a lock to get you from A to B,
right?
Then that's going to be kind of the little issue.
Then you need to, the firearm needs to be secured or safely locked up.
Yeah.
So again, that's a whole other thing. You can't just walk out of the door.
No.
Okay. So I got my thing, right?
You got your gun.
I got my
waited
thing.
your 10 days peacefully.
But it's not as simple as that, because if I actually want to make this an operational firearm, I'm going to need a few things, right?
I'm going to need some ammunition. If you're starting from the bottom, you need ammunition. You're going to need a set of eyes, ears, and I
need eye protection if I'm going to go practice, ear protection if I'm going to go practice. So there are additional purchases there. You'll see people trying to customize their firearms. If you're a new gun owner, you'll hear all kinds of stuff about what's good, what's bad. Do you need a red dot? Do you not? Do you want to use iron sights? Which red dot sucks? Which one doesn't? Like if you want to put one of those on, is your firearm equipped to even accept one of those? Do you have a holster for your firearm when you take it to the range? Do you have to have a holster? Not necessarily, but it's actually the safer way to be out on the range. Because think of
or even can you use a holster in some ranges? It's crazy.
There's a lot of things to think about here.
Yeah.
You should be asking those questions. But the point of this is we get to the ammunition piece, and then we don't have to go too much further than this, but now I need ammunition. And that's usually something that people think about. Okay, now I purchased my firearm. I'm inside my 10-day waiting period.
Yeah.
Right. And so I need these extra things. Like my buddy told me I got to get a red dot. So I need another $700 for that. And, it only comes with 2 magazines. So I need a couple more magazines.
Definitely
so I got to get that. And then I'm going to need some ammunition for it.
You need something to clean it. You need something to care for it. Everything. Yeah.
So let's talk about the ammunition thing, particularly here in California, because I think this is another thing people have no idea about.
It is wild, and I've never been yelled at more in a shop industry or a shop standpoint than for this specific thing alone.
Talk about the requirement.
So the requirement to purchase ammo in California, you definitely need a valid state license. So whether that be a driver's license or a identification card. And then you basically just have to have a registered firearm at the registered address that's on your ID card.
Just.
So you can be like, well, I haven't bought a gun before. Well, then there's another, to even double back, you say you have bought a gun and all that good stuff. So if you have bought a gun in California, you live in California, your address is current on your ID, all you got to do is just an instantaneous $1 background check. And that involves them just swiping your ID, sending out that address that is on your ID does have a registered firearm at that location. It will bounce back yes, and then you can go ahead and start listing all the ammos that you're going to get.
Okay, so listen up, Californians that don't understand this. Even to buy ammo, a background check needs to be done.
Yes,
and
100%.
It needs to be verified that you have a registered firearm to the address that's on the ID that you present at the time of ammo purchase to run through that background check. And again, They're going to charge you $1 to do this on top of whatever your ammo purchase is. So let's go back. So going back to my changing my ID.
Yes.
Right? So if I want to go in right now, because I have not purchased a firearm since I moved 3 months ago, I do not have a registered firearm under the new address.
This X address.
The X address, because I purchased everything on the, including all my ammunition before.
The ammo purchasing is a little bit more forgiving than the actual firearms purchase. And when you do pick up your firearm, you are able to purchase ammo in that same background check. So you don't have to pay your $1 or anything.
I'm talking about people that have not bought a firearm for a while.
So
like
so if you haven't bought a firearm for a while, but you know you've had a registered one, you can give that address, and that address will go through.
Yeah, but it's not on my ID. But
that's the thing where it kind of goes as not as because for ammo purchases, you don't necessarily need a proof of residency. A second proof of residency as is. So, I mean, it doesn't happen often, but a lot of the times they would go back to their old paperwork and we would go if they've just moved.
Okay, but if I haven't purchased a firearm,
if you haven't purchased anything and you are trying to go purchase for that first time and that address is not have anything associated to it, you will get denied.
So this is my point. So like if I go in right now with all the firearms that I own,
if you go in with that ID
on my new address that I just got,
and you don't tell them the old one or anything.
Because I moved after I got that ID, right? And I go in and I say, I want 3 boxes of 9mm, whatever. 124 grain, right? That's what I want. And they go, cool. And they take they're going to ask me,
yes,
do you have a registered firearm to the address that's on this ID?
Correct.
And I say no, then the answer to my firearms purchase is you may not purchase this today.
It depends on your shop. So I've been in a couple different ones. Yeah, I've been in a couple different shops they were just verbally or have you write down or even take up your last purchase of your firearm and take that address and use it because that is your valid address. But a lot of people will recommend just waiting that little bit of time. But even then, if you are waiting that time to get your address done, you still have to buy a firearm to be registered at that address.
I understand. I'm talking more about all of us gun owners that have an address change because we move.
Yeah.
And now we're not able to purchase ammunition for this. Now here's another thing. Okay, so just buy it from somebody else, like out of state, and have it shipped to you. So like you could just do that. I mean, I can just get on any ammo sales site, right? And I just can have it shipped right to my address, right? No.
So you have some people that are, as I say, some people, I mean, some distributors or manufacturers of ammo that don't care about California's laws and will just send them. And we get those stories all the time that, I don't have to go through you guys. I get it sent to my house. Cool. All good deal.
Legally, federally, they're supposed to be honoring.
You need to send it to an FFL gun shop.
In the state of California.
License, in the state of California. Doesn't have to be necessarily local to you. It just has to be a shop. Has to be a registered firearms license.
Yeah, so I again, but I could go to Arizona, and if I was a resident there and order it, they can send it straight to my house.
Yes, if you're living in residence.
So it works differently in different states.
So it used to be like that. And here, I can't think of the year. Before 2018, probably.
Yeah,
you could buy ammo, no problem. That
sounds about right.
Get shipped in, no problem. Doesn't matter anything.
So let me tell you a little story. One of my very good friends works for a Department of Justice agency, right? As a federal law enforcement officer. He recently moved out of the state, but works in the state, and is dealing with kind of like family moving around or whatever else. So he's actually like here to work while family lives somewhere else while they're working this out. So he actually is like to manage expenses. So that he sometimes he spends the weekend here rather than fly back, right? So he's just trying to, again, he's a federally employed employee. He's not making a shit ton of money. So as a new federal law enforcement officer, he is like, he's pretty conscientious and he wants to train. right? So like I have time, like I'm not out partying, right? Like maybe some of these other new guys are. Like if I have time on the weekends to work out, right? Down-regulate a little bit, and I can go out and train with my firearm. He's looking to get better, right? So he goes over to the local shop. Right? And this, mind you, this is a lifetime California resident who now has an ID from a different state because he moved a couple of years ago, right? Again, but got stationed here with the agency. So he goes into the local shop to buy ammunition. This is a federal law enforcement agent. Goes into the shop and they go, we can't sell you the ammunition. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? They say, well, he says, well, you don't have an ID or you don't have a registered firearm at the address on your ID. You're from out of state. I cannot sell you this ammunition. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Here's my badge. Here's my federal identification. Here's where I'm from.
I wish I could,
He's like, I can't do that. And just so you know, everything right now is being audio and videotaped. So we're going to come back to this.
We'll come back to that too.
He goes,
which I should have brought up in the beginning.
This guy picks up the phone to call me because he's like, this can't be right. These just have to be some tool bags behind the counter right now. Who's holding this up? Like, and they tell him the Department of Justice. He's going, my employer is telling me I can't buy ammunition in my own state, right? It's like, yeah, the DOJ manages this. Well, it's the California state DOJ, but they're using the term DOJ. And again, this can be confused, but they work hand in hand. So basically our Attorney General's office is the Department of Justice here in California.
Not wrong, but it's definitely California.
It's California's holding him up. He calls me up and he goes, dude, is this right? He's calling me from outside the shop. He's like, dude, I just wanted to go out and put 100 rounds down range today and try to practice. I can't even buy ammo here. He goes, he's telling me the Department of Justice is holding me up. I'm going, the California Department of Justice is holding you up, man. I go, this is what people voted for here. And this is what's legislated. He goes, this is not fucking America. And I go, I'm so sorry. And so this is how, again, this is a federal employee who doesn't understand like the ridiculousness that we're going through here. And this is a guy who on his own time, on his own dime, because the department's not paying for this.
Wants to get better.
Wants to go out and he's being denied.
Yep. It's wild.
Spending his money, right? That supports a local business, right? That, you know, he pays taxes just like everybody else, right? And they pay taxes just like anybody else. Can't get ammunition for his guns or his gun. His service gun, right? Service gun.
Which is...
He can't do it. And he's like, and again, he was very frustrated because he was not informed going in there and the people behind the desk were not informed. Now, I want to come back to the whole video audio taping thing.
Yeah.
Because this is something that happened in our county.
It happened very recently in the last year or so. And now it's being throughout the entire state now, which is just...
So all firearms and ammunition sales are required to be audio and video taped.
Recorded.
So I just want to go back to the folks that think we're just handing this shit out to people.
Yeah.
This is not the case.
No, and we also get audited on those as well, too, to see if your storage is valid through those last, I think it's 60 days or 90 days that you have to keep a valid footage for, which is a lot of storage. And you're selling guns all day.
And ammunition.
So it is a little bit taxing on...
And who's being recorded? The peaceable,
everybody,
law-abiding, California, United States citizen who is trying to exercise their rights in whatever way they see fit for them. Who's not being recorded? Shitbags out on the street that are circumventing this
stuff out. So we're definitely in the wrong area looking for people.
Exactly. I think that proves the point. It's just that there's I think the energy is being misdirected.
Guided, yeah.
And which turns into emotions and a false narrative and let's just say lying at the end of the day. And at this point, like in some cases, I really truly believe that the politicians think that what they're saying is true, and others fully know that they're lying and saying it anyway because there really is no accountability to any of this. So I have a problem with that, and obviously I stand on the side of it's our Second Amendment. It says what it says. It is what it is, and I recognize within that comes responsibility, and that responsibility can become problematic for certain people in certain situations. That doesn't change what it says. And continuing to, if you listen to what you just walked them through, just in the simple purchase and exercising those rights.
Yeah, it didn't even
easy
sound
to do
simple, but that was the simplest way I can give it.
There's so much convolution in all of that all this information gets confused.
Yeah.
And it reaches the public who is uninformed, and they make up these stories.
And it
keeps perpetuating itself.
It's amplified each time, and it's just
it's like that game of telephone.
Yeah,
right. It's like that game of telephone. You tell one person, shit story changes a little bit.
The farther it goes, the more stuff is not accurate.
Then it gets broadcasted. It goes viral on a social media platform or whatever else, and this is the truth. The truth is we have issues, and it's not the peaceable citizens that are trying to do what it is that they're trying to do. And again, I'm not saying this to say that there should be no regulation at all whatsoever around firearms purchases and who they go to. I'm not saying that, but I'm also not saying, you heard me say it a couple of times, the Second Amendment says what the Second Amendment says. So if you're infringing on that at all, and you think that states like California or other places are just letting people walk in blindly,
it's a different story
with their paychecks and turn those in for firearms, it's a completely different story. And so again, the interesting part about this, going back to the very beginning, is like your experience in such a, at the place you are in life, and having understood all this, and how many people get way further just like me and don't understand this because we're not in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. All the time, and being able to share that story from your perspective is very interesting. I appreciate the way you kind of handle that. Like, you've done it so many times. You're clearly a pro, and so there's like this kind of like this lightness about it. But I also have been in the shop where I've seen.
You got guys that won't even talk to you. They won't even look at you. They will be strictly
all business.
All business.
All business.
That's not what it is. I don't feel it as. I don't see it as a. I mean, it is a business, obviously, but I definitely see it a lot more than that. And
it's a service.
It's a service, and it's a community service thing. Right. I mean, almost, if not half of every firearm that I've sold to a customer of mine have come back, and they've wanted to somehow be amplified in the community or know what their next step is. Where do I go to training? What really gear do I buy? Like, there's not everyone's like that, but it definitely, the more the time goes on, the more that people are kind of waking up and being like, I really want to do this for myself, kind of thing. So that's what being in the shop, or kind of the stories that kind of float around, is that people are just, like you said, have preconceived notions, and they're just ready to kind of branch out or see what this process is really like, I guess. Not to go on like a tangent, but
no, I think what I hear you saying is like you felt a little responsibility to helping somebody through the process in a helpful way.
Yes. I felt like if I did someone a disservice during their first time of buying a firearm, or being the first time in a gun shop, or first time training, being out there and really training and really harping in your skills and trying to be adequate with what you're dealing with, is my favorite part, almost, because I don't want to feel like, oh, I got my first gun from this guy. He was kind of I don't even really like this. I don't even really know I didn't even learn anything when I was over there. That would be my worst case scenario. Like, I would rather a lot of people come in and ask a bunch of questions and not know, than someone pretending to know.
I think that's the answer here at the end that I was hoping I would get from you, and that is your position on it is yes, I stood behind the counter and I had to go through process, but it was more of a service to help people get into the right thing for them in the best way that they possibly could, in the best way that I could possibly help them. Do it in a kind and informative way. Be thorough. And firm.
Which is the hardest thing to be in this kind of industry, or even everything that comes with it.
There's so
much to download and unload and process.
So if you're that guy, if you're standing on the other side of the counter, like, that's the message I would hope those people get, because I hear the bad stories a lot from people.
I've even worked with the bad people.
They were unapproachable. They had a specific agenda. They were trying to sell me this thing. I didn't really want this thing. They kind of the responses that they had to my questions and or my opinions on certain things, were off-putting. And, maybe even disparaging. They made me feel stupid. I've heard, seen, witnessed
all of it.
There's truth in that. I mean, there's truth in that. And again, I think it discourages a lot of people from going through the process. And I think there's a lot of people that if they felt like they were actually going to be helped rather than sold, when they walked into these stores or these places, particularly again in our state of California, that we would have maybe some more proactivity from those people that had great experiences, because you don't hear about those. All you hear about is the bad ones.
No, when you do hear about those great experiences, guess who they're bringing the next time they come?
Right.
If a friend or a significant other or their cousin or something.
There's a business opportunity,
and then it goes
too.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. I mean, you talk to anybody that talks to lots of people all the day, or has been customer service, or has a business, and knows that the best way to talk to somebody is not through a business standpoint. It's to really just be a person and just be able to be communicated with like that. Because you talk to a robot, you're not going to want to talk to a robot for very long.
Yeah, I get where you could be standing behind that counter and there's a line out the door and it seems like the same conversation over and over and over again. I've been there, done that. In the service business, that is what it is.
It needs to happen sometimes. So it is what it is.
Well, I guess I'm just sort of wrapping this up, man. Like, again, we started off with a few things kind of from the cultural standpoint. You helped me understand things a little bit better. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing your story and your insights there. From
hopefully someone makes sense.
Yeah. And I think it will. I really believe that some people that are listening to this may have turned it off a long time ago because like I've been there a million times. I know this thing and this isn't super helpful for me. But I do believe there's some valuable information that was stacked up inside of what you provided there. And they might even have questions, like in terms of like, hey, I heard you say this part, but what if? Or I've had this experience, in the shop as a consumer or maybe as an employee. How might you handle this differently? Or where would you recommend? Maybe I live in this area. Usually, again, that's a great way to find coaches.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing with the community as well, too, is finding someone that you're comfortable with and you actually like.
And I'm sure
that you want to be.
Yeah, so shopping is a thing. And you're not just shopping for the gun. You might be shopping for the right shop. And shops need to understand that. Like, I was told this once I forget where it came up, but we had the shoe shop downtown where we had our previous studio, and I was recollecting like what a good experience I had and this person's name and whatever to this client that I had. And I go, yeah, we've known her for a long, long time. Look at it this way: she wasn't trying to sell you your first pair of shoes; she's trying to sell you your 20th pair of shoes. Yeah, and they were right on with that because I just keep going back to do. That's how I kind of operated too. I mean, guns are like tattoos too, by the way. Like you get one, you can't just have one. So
that is 100% the analogy. You got to scratch it with itch. Yeah. Well, my thing is don't fall down the rabbit hole, because if you do, you're not coming back.
Well, I know some guys that love being in that thing, and they're really good at it too. They want to know all the things about all the guns, and they want to shoot them all and have them all. And hey, that's part of this. You do you.
Like I said, there's every aspect of life that is in this community, and you can definitely find a spot, if not make one.
Well, if you're trying to help somebody maybe find, or if people are really looking for a spot, is there a way you can help them? Like I know, so you got Arm the Homies, the whole lifestyle brand. Like if people wanted to reach out, get more information about ATH, but maybe also pick your brain or maybe get some information where to go, like regionally, because generally, shop owners know other shop owners, employees know other employees regionally. I know you travel around right now quite a bit. I mean, you've been spending a lot of time with Kyle over at Manzano Tactical out on the range.
Shout out to him. It's been a great part of bringing this community together in California and just really spreading it throughout the nation almost. I mean, we went to Atlanta together this past couple months, or earlier this year, I guess. Now it's been so long.
In May, yeah.
But yeah, the community events are a huge thing, which I highly suggest anyone that has one in their state or has one small local one, or a match or something like that, highly, highly suggest. Everyone there is basically waiting for you. They want to show you the ropes and they want to show you all this cool stuff that we have to offer. So.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to that, and sometimes you got to find the right tribe and the right person.
Definitely.
So if they want to reach out, what's the Insta handle? What do we do?
Instagram, Arm the Homies Actual. That's us on there. We also have our website as well too, and then we also try to update of where we're going to be at locally. Like this weekend, we'll be down a little bit towards SoCal, Porterville area. We'll be teaching handgun and red dot, or handgun, red dot, and rifle down there with Kyle. So that will be awesome. And then we're also going to be at CRW, which is in November.
Yeah, can't wait for CRW.
CRW is going to be a great, great event. If nobody's heard of it, it's a great community event down south. Mixed with vendors, people of interest, great trainers from all around California and other states as well too. And then a lot of vendors too. We do have a vendor day, which is super nice. So anybody who can have the opportunity to be out there, I definitely would. It's definitely a life-changing kind of event.
Yeah, it was for me, and it has been for me, and that's why this is the third time I'm participating.
Exactly,
It's November 10th through the 12th. That's Veterans Weekend, just above Azusa. I think officially we call it Azusa, California. It's in the San Gabriel Mountains at Burrough County Shooting Park. So November 10th through the 12th, go to California Range Weekend. You can go to the website there, just punch that into your Google browser or your browser, it'll pop right up, or go to the Instagram handle at California Range Weekend, and all the sign up stuff is there. I will be down there with the ATH guys and a bunch of other cool folks.
Yeah, we'll all have booths down there, so make sure you guys come say hi, say what's up, grab some merch.
Well, thanks for coming in, man. I appreciate your time and energy today.
I appreciate you having me, man. Hopefully a lot of people listening kind of learn something or open their eyes at least a little bit of kind of the little stuff that California people got to do to get their first gun.
I think they did, man. Great job.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.